Hello, and welcome to the Veterans Ascend Weekly Podcast. Today, we are honored to speak with Kirby Ingles. Kirby is an Army veteran, having served over 21 years. Today, Kirby specializes in helping professionals and emerging leaders in Fortune 500 companies understand their unique values, strengths, and resources while connecting them to the purpose and meaning of their work. Through building trust and stakeholder buy-in, the members of his program create the change in their own behaviors and results that helps them level up in their profession and establish an executive presence. Kirby works together with them to build a framework that creates a rich and satisfying experience and a life of happiness and fulfillment. Helping people achieve true success is Kirby's new purpose. He equips them through coaching, workshops, retreats, resources, masterminds, and creating a conversation around the meaning of true success. The impact one person can have can create a ripple effect and change generations. We are privileged to hear about Kirby's service, his transition, what led him to his new mission of creating true success. He will take us through why true success is not what we think, and also give his advice to transitioning service members and veterans. So Kirby, thank you so much for your time today. Let's start out by telling us about your service in the Army, your transition, and your journey that led you to become a certified coach and create the podcast True Success.
Yeah, that's awesome, Robyn. Thank you very much. First of all, and I just want to thank you for having me on the Veterans Ascend podcast. This is a great opportunity, and I always love speaking to the veterans out there and the listeners. So, yeah, my military service really started in 1996. I know that's kind of an oddity these days because it starts with a 19 instead of a 20. So it's over
Right?
almost 20, 21 to 23 years now or something like that. Now it's hard to count. But yeah, it's been amazing. I started it off in the Illinois Army National Guard when I was a junior in high school. I knew from very early age, my grandparents had instilled that value of service, military service into me. So I knew right away I was going to do this. And I just happened to talk to a really sly recruiter, a very good guy who had a great heart and had a huge impact on me. Not the traditional story a military service member would tell you, but he convinced me that going in the National Guard as a junior would be more beneficial to me later on than I realized it. And then once I kind of got into active duty a couple years later, I realized that what he had told me was true because I was getting paid for an additional 2 years of service when I had only had, just started active duty because I had been in the National Guard. So by the time I hit 4 years, I was getting paid for 6 because my National Guard time was counting towards pay. So, and monetarily, it really had a huge impact on me. And so that was just one of the people that had a huge impression on me. But, I ended up at Fort Riley. I was an HR guy by trade. And I continued to move through. I probably had like 10 or 12 duty stations over my career and a very vast and broad experience. I worked for the Inspector General for a few years. I did my deployments in Iraq. I spent some time in Egypt and the multinational force observers working with 13 different countries in that peacekeeping mission with Egypt and Israel. I also was a program manager for the Army's sexual harassment assault response program. And, just a lot of things like that. I was a first sergeant a couple times. So, and I also served with the United States Army's Old Guard, which is the escort to the President of the United States. So I really had a very broad and big background. And really, what led me to becoming a coach was my time in the Old Guard. I got an opportunity to meet Jack Tilley, this former Sergeant Major of the Army. And he had brought him and his team in. This is after he retired and started his own company. And one of the things that he said that day that really resonated with me, because I was about 14, 16 years in the Army at that point, said that the very first day that you enter the Army, even before that, when you start thinking about the Army, every decision that you make, you need to be thinking about how that's going to affect you after you get out of the military. And what he was saying is that every decision, every school that you go to, every duty station, every job you take needs to be aimed at getting out of the military because eventually the Army's not going to need you anymore. Your expiration of service is going to happen, whether you wanted to or not. And what are you going to do with your life after that? Your whole life begins again. And whether you do 4 years or 30 years, it doesn't matter. At some point, it's going to end. And everything that you do from here on out needs to be aimed towards that end goal. And so that really resonated with me. And I started my transition probably about year 14. I really started thinking hard, like, okay, what am I going to do? And I was sitting in that first sergeant position at the Old Guard. And I was like, I don't want to go back to doing HR. I really did not want to get in the corporate setting of HR and have to climb the corporate ladder again. And I was like, what is it that's going to, help me have an impact? What is it that I want to do? And I was thinking about counseling for a while. And I was thinking about that because I really had a great time helping people, young professionals and emerging leaders in the Army, overcome obstacles. And that's really what a first sergeant does. It does a lot of personal and professional development with young soldiers and helps guide and lead an organization. And so, I wanted to do something very similar to that. But what I found, when I looked at why I enjoy doing the HR job so much, it was the problem solving aspect of it. It was working with individuals. And the reason why I didn't want to continue to HR, because I was kind of getting tired of being in meetings and writing policy, and I just wasn't connecting with the soldier at the lowest level possible. So I thought, counseling was going to be it. And once I got into the counseling program, they had this track for life coaching. And so I jumped on it. And then there was leadership coaching and health and wellness coaching. And I started doing all those things. And I really that's how I fell in love with coaching. And that's where I took off and got my certifications. And that's kind of how I got into the coaching aspect. And then, to talk about how I got and created the True Success podcast, there's a good guy named Bill Killoy I spent 3 days with at the Military Influencer Conference in 2019, this past September. And we'd been talking about podcasts, and he challenged me. He says, Kirby, when are you going to start your podcast? And I kind of kept kicking the can around, and we went to a breakout session about podcasting. And one of the guys there said, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, just start a podcast. And that message just resonated with me. And so me and Ben talked about it the rest of the weekend. We brainstormed it. We masterminded it. And now we have the True Success podcast.
That's awesome. So a couple of things. It was very insightful of Mr. Silly to tell you to think about that, because when I went in the Navy right out of high school, I thought I was going to be in the Navy forever. You just, as a young kid, you just don't think about what you're going to be doing 30 years from now. You just, you're invincible, right? So great advice, and great for our listeners that are service members that are getting out to really truly think about, because it does have an impact if you don't start planning early and making those inroads to figuring out what you want to do. Because you're right, Kirby, the Army, the Navy, whatever military you're in, you have an expiration date, whether it's 40 years or, 4 years. So great advice. And I was at the Military Influencer Conference as well. We probably were in that podcast class together. So that's awesome. It was a great conference. So, all right. So tell us about the impact of your coaching experience and what that has done for you, what that's meant for you, and then kind of take us through the True Success podcast. What makes it unique? Kind of tell us about it.
Yeah. So the impact of my coaching experience has been very vast and broad as my military experience. That's my coaching experience as well. Because when I first started, I was probably about a year into my master's program when I just decided I was going to start. I couldn't wait anymore. I was like, I'm just going to start my coaching practice. And I did. And I was actually in the Army at the time, so you could call me a third shift entrepreneur. And I started doing that. And I also looked for other opportunities. So in episode 33, you interviewed Ty from the Blue Star Families. And the Blue Star Families had a program at the time. And they were working with the Rosalind Carter Institute of Caregiving. And Rosalind Carter is the spouse of former President Jimmy Carter. And they were doing this caregiving program, and they were doing a caregiving program for veterans through Blue Star Families. And so I actually got to work with military spouses and help them do problem solving and learn more about problem solving techniques and how to help them overcome the barriers that they were facing. So that was very important to me. And that was also an opportunity for me to continue to give back to the community that gave so much to me. And I realized at that moment I had a lot of purpose and satisfaction in that. And that kind of resonated with me a lot and made me want to continue to pursue something like that. For example, today, I spend a lot of time doing ultra marathons, and every time I do an ultra marathon, I dedicate one of those ultra marathons to a service member who has taken their own life, so that way we can keep their legacy alive and raise awareness for military PTSD and suicide. So, and that's kind of what my coaching experience has really brought me. I worked with a lot of people in Fortune 500 companies, through a couple companies, and even through my own practice. And what I've always found, right? What I've always found was 8 to 9 every 10 people that I work with have no meaning or purpose in their work. They're struggling. They're fighting it. And the stats are tremendous for military veterans too, because for 47% of military veterans who are working in jobs say that they lack meaning and purpose. And then another 43% say that they found more meaning and purpose in the military than they do in their corporate jobs. And so that became very important to me. And that's kind of why I started the True Success podcast, because I wanted to help people find purpose and meaning, but also translate that into an impact leader. So going from purpose to impact.
Wow. So it makes a lot of sense. And I'm just thinking, one of the reasons that we started Veterans Ascend was a very similar kind of thought process in getting veterans to feel good about the skills that they bring to the table, helping them translate those skills, because in the military, it's never about you. It's about, everything else. But when you get out, you've got to start thinking about what your message is. And that's difficult to do really for anybody to sit down and talk about themselves. But we, wanted to help veterans find that purpose as well. And there's a lot of other statistics out there that say if you are put into a job that utilizes the skills you're passionate about, that you're proud of, and that you're good at, you'll be about 38% more productive. So that's what we're facilitating as well, and helping veterans be proud of the skills that they bring from their military experience, and helping the employers connect with them on those skills. So, all right. So now I'm curious. I've been looking forward to this question. So take us through why true success is not what we think it is, and tell us what it is, if you can, if that's not a secret.
No, it's no secret at all. And I think that people look at true success in a different way. So when people think of success, they think of doing good things. They think of getting promotions. And I think of probably the weekly or the monthly accomplishments, or even the day-to-day accomplishments. For somebody that, if you ask them, say, what's true success? They might say, making it in the top 10% of my industry. Or they may say becoming a CEO of a company. They may, true success to a lot of people is making it to the top, accomplishing all the accolades, being the best of the best, right? But to me, that's not what true success is. True success is a person that understands their purpose and meaning in work, and they also find the opportunity to give back to the community, not only to help improve the organization, but improve the lives of other people in the organization, and leave a fingerprint or a footprint for generations to come. And one of the things that, I find that a lot of people can't do is, when I talk to them, is they can probably recite the organization's mission. But when you ask them, what's your mission or what's your purpose as an individual, as a leader, and they struggle with that idea. And so I help them with that. And once people really do find their leadership purpose, they begin to set that fire ablaze, and they become like a forest fire, and they become very unstoppable because they find meaning in everything that they do. And so that's why I think true success is meaningful for me, because that was one of the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to create a ripple effect, right, across several generations of my family. And like my family had done before me. And I have a long history of military service, which I can date all the way back to the American Revolution and the French and Indian Wars. And so that was very meaningful when people imparted that knowledge and legacy upon me. And that kind of turned the fire up inside of me. But that's really what it is. It's about creating that impact and giving people better opportunities moving forward. And it's not that we're going to realize it in this lifetime, but it will be seen in 2 or 3 and even 4 generations later.
Wow. Well, first of all, I love that your grandparents instilled that in you. as a grandparent, I don't know. I want to instill that service in my grandchildren, and my legacy too. My true success will be leaving them something that they're proud of, that they can be look back and be proud of me for. So, but I don't know if I recommend them going in the military. That's a hard one for me, even though I've served, but that is awesome. So, and I get the great thing about what you're doing is helping as an individual, because it's all different. Each one of us has a different purpose, a different true success. So
Mhm.
I love what you're doing. Excellent. All right. So tell us, you probably kind of given some of this along the way, but tell us what your best advice would be for a transitioning service member or a veteran, and not only in their transition, but maybe perhaps wanting to start their own company. That probably couldn't have been super easy, and you may have some insight there as well.
Yeah, Robyn, that's a great question. I'll give you two little nuggets that I've found along the way so far. Even when I started networking early on in my military career, the big thing was network, and the thing that Jack Tilley told us was the officers got it figured out. The officers have been networking for a long time, and they help each other through the process. As it was the enlisted people back then, and this is probably about 10, 15 years ago. So we just haven't made that connection between military service and the corporate world, and we aren't networking as much as we should be at the time. And I think he was kind of a pioneer for that and kind of helped us understand that idea. And networking has become very important. But the reason why I bring up networking is because only about 2% of veterans actually have an executive or a chairperson advocating for them. So I would say when you find what you're looking for, whether it be a location or a company or a particular career field, you need to find that person that's going to advocate for you in the future. And that's going to be extremely important for you. And the other one is that another alarming statistic that I've run across is that 49% of Americans, not just military, but Americans in general, are trying to live a life that they desire without knowing their own goals or having a roadmap. So if you're going to get out of the military and you're going to have a plan, that you need to have a roadmap on how to get there. You need to start documenting. Like, you need to have that end goal in mind, and you need to have those benchmarks that you're going to have along the way. I know a lot of people say, well, I'm going to do this month and this month. They need to be progressive goals. They need to build off of each other like a stair step there until you get to where you're wanting to go. That's my best advice, is to build a roadmap and to stick to it, and have an accountability partner. Have somebody that's either going through the same process, or find a mentor, because there's tons of mentors out there. Veterati was one of those. That was huge. Patriot Boot Camp, I went there. If you're thinking about entrepreneurship, you have to apply for Patriot Boot Camp. It is probably the best. Go to the Military Influencer Conference and check that out. There are a ton of resources out there for veterans, dedicated to veterans, and it's phenomenal. And a lot of this stuff is low cost, and it's not going to hurt you. You might have to get there. You might have to pay for your hotel, but a lot of this stuff is provided for you. Like Veterati, you can talk to 20 mentors a year, and it's not going to cost you a dime except for your time. And there's tons of people out there. I've met authors and CEOs and all kinds of people who have been in the service and out of the service that are just giving back to veterans and trying to give them great advice and open doors for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I totally agree. Patriot Boot Camp, Military Influencer, Veterati, all excellent programs. And to your point, I think what a lot of veterans kind of struggle through is they get out and think they have to do this on their own. And they need to reach out to all of those resources, find people on LinkedIn that they can connect with, find mentors, find these programs, because they're out there. And you're right, they're at low to no cost to the veterans. So awesome. Well, Kirby, you mentioned before we started the recording that you had an offer for our listeners. Did you want to offer that now? Tell them about how you can help them.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give you a free guidebook, right? It's called the True Purpose Guidebook, and most of my products are the True Purpose of True Success. That's just my branding, but it's the True Purpose Guidebook. It's a 24-day conversation that really helps you create an intentional direction towards a life of happiness and fulfillment. Whether you're looking for a balance in your life, or just you're looking to find meaningful work after the military or while you're in the military, it will serve you well. If you're just like frustrated because you can't find that meaningful work and you feel like you're wasting your time, or you're missing out on the experiences that you feel like you should be having, you want to live like a values-based life of integrity, or even, just create some value and have a significant impact in your life, like I said earlier, and have that leave that fingerprint or that footprint for others to follow. That guidebook, that 24-day guidebook will serve you well. And at the end of that guidebook, I give you an offer, right? A big offer. Because what I found was, if you can go from qualified to highly qualified, that's almost a $30,000 to $80,000 increase, depending on the industry that you're in. And so that's what I like to help people do, improve their lifestyle, redesign their life in a way that really just revolutionizes the way they lead and live.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Kirby, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for sharing your creative impact on True Success. It really is. It's a great program, what you're doing. We appreciate you sharing these great insights today. And listeners, for more information on Kirby's program and the True Success podcast, please visit their website at www.kirbyingles.com. And for more information on Veterans Ascend or to sign up today, please visit our website at www.veteransascend.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.